still got the outside shoes. Minky, really, why Minky? Thank you, Minky. So this is David, and David is very sad because today, while playing tug of war, which we don't do very often because it's not a lot of room here, and I was doing tug of war, but the green head separated from the yellow body, and obviously David recognized that, and I made an emotional structure out of it, which is obviously something that he has never really understood by when something rips, and because this is like a dragon stuffy, and so because it really Minky, very funny Minky is always latched onto David. You can see Minky's 55 pounds. Hello, Minky. Hi, silly boy. And David is 211. Minky. So, David, you're okay. So the thing split and broke in half. And of course, because this is his favorite toy, the context was much different for him because this toy he's been playing with for over a year. It's never broken. It's tattered, but the stitching has been so good that it's never broken apart. And hopefully I can find a sewing kit here and sew it together for him. Hi, Abby. There's Sammy. Sammy. Hi, Sammy. Hi, silly girl. And then there's Abby. And then William. William is outside still. So anyhow, it broke off. And poor David is sad. And you can see him kind of muzzling it now, and he wasn't before because he's still kind of emotionally processing what's going on. So what I should have done as well, and unfortunately there's too many other dogs around at the time, was to give David a reset hug because it will allow him to be able to process this highly complex aspect of grief. Right, this emotive structure of grief is a complexity that if you don't know how to handle it, you become angry as a default emotion, right, of our two core emotives. So then David is going, oh wow, this is horrible. I don't know how to deal with this. Something happened, and I feel a sense of something, but I don't have a context to it. And that's like about pain and interdependency, codependency, egoselfishness, all these kinds of things. So he has this objectification, and he has an understanding and a memory of the construction and deconstruction of what happened. He knows it's split. He knows it broke for the first time ever in as long as he's ever seen it. That level of permanence and permanence of loss, such as death as well, in that structure, it's so complex for him to process that grief. And that level of uniqueness circumstantially allows me to give David the opportunity to process that highly complex structure. And in this case, it allowed me to kind of try to finally get up to David, and of course he would circle, and I would try to stop him, he'd pull away, and he's 211 pounds. Minky's irritating him. Hi, Minky. Hi, David. Hello, Sammy. Hello, Abby. Hello, William. So I'll raise my tone of voice deliberately for the dogs inside the room because they already know that that William's outside. So I raise it up so that they know that I'm uniquely identifying that it is so much more a location, a context of codependency and interdependency, not intra, but interdependency within the family structure that, okay, I'm making sure that that's where he is. Right, so they would create that familiarity, a familial structure, and then we give that. Wow, he's so noisy. Minky, Minky, hello, Minky, Minky, Minky. All right, so bratty. So it gives David that that ability to absorb this emotion in context in a safe manner is how I've spoken about before in regards to providing context behavior, such as in dangerous situations, that kind of stuff, on how I have taught them how to process that complexity of those really, really absolutely emotionally and psychologically powerful feelings, right? So the emotive structure is so strong and prominent because it's absolutely brand new. It's so intense, and because it's predicated upon a level of permanence, right? Prior, it has never done that. Other parts are broken off. We play tug of war all the time, and it's never broken. And now it broke, which I kind of was fearing was going to happen. But I thought, well, I just won't play that rough with him. And tonight I thought I'd just play a little bit more rougher with David. Hi, David. With big eyebrows, size. You're okay, David. You're okay, silly boy, David. I know, David. You're okay with your stuffy. You're okay, David. Hi, David. So it's just that tone, the endearment tone, but a little bit more maturity to it, because of course we don't want that level of emotional dysfunction or deficiency to occur by dropping the tone down, because it's like someone talking baby talk to you. Then you feel that is a disingenuous application of words to you from the other person, that it doesn't mean anything because it's just words, because the tone is so fake. So I try to kind of keep that in that range for David. And also, anyhow, so he's circling around, and I finally get him to stop by saying to stop louder and louder. Not forcefully, but kind of still somewhat jovial, because again, he's dealing with a complex emotion, and if I become a different tone of voice, I don't want him to become, fearfully passive in that sense. And to break that down is, I don't want him to have the dysfunction of thinking, oh no, he has to stop because he's ordered to do. I have to stop because I'm ordered to do so, and I don't even have the chance to think it through, and I'm probably going to get in trouble or a reset hug, and it'll be too complex for me to handle. Right? He has that level, because what I'm saying is that there's the feeling of confusion that is occurring, so we break it all down. So that's why I say fearfully passive. It means more than that. There's such a complexity of the behavior when we destructure and disaggregate. Then we see the pieces and we can blend them all together because we've seen the individual pieces. So the puzzle is so much more easier to apply because we recognize the pieces and we have a good general understanding of where those pieces fit with the other pieces in the what I call quantum context, right? Like in the point where, again, consciousness in that as a quantum structure. Minky's so funny. Minky, hi, silly boy. Minky, you're okay. He's got such cute little tiny rabbit feet. Yes, David. Sammy with the no legs. Abby, hi, William. So again, it gives William also the understanding too that he's out there, that I haven't forgotten about him. So if he's in another room, I will always say his name or David's name, or Minky's name if they're in another room, or more than one dog is out. I'll say all their names in a louder tone, and or I'll also say it with the name of the room that I think they're in, as regards to an objectification. If I am not at least 75% sure that it's the right room that I'm going to objectify when I say their name with it, I won't say anything at all other than their name. Because if I'm saying the wrong room, it can, again, nuanced wise in regards to how structure of consciousness develops that cogency and salience for sentience, is to then not use that. So otherwise they just hear their name, because that's what I'm doing with William now, for example. I know he's outside, but he might not be on the porch. He might be in the grass in the backyard looking around. But then it gives these guys also, again, the context as well. Okay, the other dog is outside while we're here, yada, yada, yada. Anyhow, getting back to David, is so I got him to stop jovially to allow him the comprehension that I do want him to stop, but I'm not angry. He's not going to be in trouble as per se. Because of course, when you play with your dog, you make them, and they make you laugh, they hear it. They understand that level. They understand not the endorphins or bullshit like that, but they understand this consciousness, that structures of emotive and psychological, right? And logic and illogic all happening. So they understand because they're all fitting in the same key structures, right? The same signature, relatively the same signature. It's like a lock that you just kind of, if you jimmy it with any key, it will eventually open, right? So that kind of looseness of context. All right. So this stuff is just so exhaustingly definitive, right? There's no such thing as innate of language or evolution. Noam Chomsky is so wrong. It's just a childish surrender of saying, well, I don't know how to think any deeper than that. Well, that's because you have to look at the structure of consciousness. And for David, right, that consciousness, the structure, the level of cogency, which becomes some of that charisma of an individual, right, that emotion and personality, logic and rhythm, charisma, right? So this is an ability for our dogs to have the same part. The more cogent they are, the more fuller they feel. And by giving David and taking the risk of being bitten, because again, because he didn't want me to give him a reset because of the complexity of the emotions and his lack of intimacy of affection at that extreme level and most unique level of experience. So David was feeling, holy cow. So jovially, I got him to stop. He was on my right, so I was going to give him a reset hug with his head facing to my left. And so I did, and I got down to him within a reasonable distance and giving him a full reset hug. And he is 211 pounds. And then he started to growl. And the really unique thing about a Great Dane being 211 pounds and 3 feet 2 inches at his shoulders is the fact that when he growls, he rumbles, and you can feel it in his body quite frighteningly, because that precedes something dangerous happening. So he did that. He did growl, and I went, David, and then I said, you're okay, and all that stuff, and I let him go, and still trying to kind of talk it down a bit because it's quite frightening for me. Anyhow, long story short, he went here and laid down here, which is not something he would typically do. He would lay up there, as you can see, but here's because he's closer to me. Right? But David has such difficulty with men because he was, went to a canine police dog handler, trainer, boarding, like, oh, there's a stupid ineptitude on all these trainers and the academia. Anyhow, so of course that, and people can't be near him when he's laying down. I mean, there's times where he's actually nipped my foot because he didn't know what it was at night, that kind of stuff. So he was jumped on when he was, in the family, the kids would jump on him when he was sleeping, like all these kinds of things. It's like, holy fuck. So, and then they had him on 80 milligrams of Prozac and 750 milligrams of Trazodone for 2 years of his life. And he, David, you're okay. Thank you, Minky. And then he comes completely weaned before he shows up here. Hello, Minky. So, hi, Mr. David. So for him is giving him not to take the edge off, because that's just so uncouth again, right? It's such a crude statement because it means that there's no definition to it. There's no eloquence or comprehension to a more defined level of comprehension, not understanding but comprehension. So for David, it gives him the ability to process that uniquely, and it broadens his context, his repertoire, right? It gives him more breadth, more gradient, more color to the overall gradient structure of consciousness in regards to the emotive aspects and how it functions. Hello, Mr. David. Oh, David. See his front left paw, David's front left paw. Yes, David. You're okay, David, with his right eye, right? So that's right. He is thinking. He is understanding. I'm talking about him. This is psychosomatic manifestations. This is consciousness. This is structure of egoselfishness, thinking. He understands. So again, the level of emotional structure, the complexity of the biological species itself, all these things, of course, are going to be at play. But the ability to live together is what, you're okay, David, is what is complex. But anyhow, there's this paw that was kind of like gripping onto the other part of the piece, because it's two pieces, and it was separated for a while before I started filming. That's why I went to film it, because I was like, oh my gosh, he looks so sad. And then by the time I got filming, he had laid back down on top of the other one, which is the yellow piece. And so you saw him kind of gripping onto it, right? So there's that kind of not melancholy. David, you're okay, silly boy. Yes, David. So he's literally the green part, which is the head, and then the yellow part is the body. So it's not a graphic aspect of it because there's no context. It never looked dangerous whatsoever. It's basically a kid's stuffed toy, right? And I'll buy the kids' stuffed toys because they have to be safe for children, right? So there can't be like threads and all that stuff that right? Because you see that there are some threads there, but it's not like they're poisonous like polyester and all that garbage threads, right? Especially because it's a kid's toy. All right, because polyester is much harder to break, and so a child can become strangled, whereas that you can see, well, it's hard to tell, but you can see the thread there is so loose and right, it's so light that of course a panicked parent can easily pull that apart if a child was to be choking, being like strangled by it. And then of course it's so small and negligent that if they were to swallow it, it wouldn't do anything other than bunch up and become poo, whereas again synthetic thread would cause it to become a bit more loose and unwound within the stomach and the intestines. So anyhow, giving David the ability to give context and giving him jovial aspect, he was very growly, yada yada yada. All right, sorry, I just kind of run over time on here. Oh, Minky, hi Minky, look how cute you are, Minky.